I'm the heir apparent to the Hayes Corporation, and my aunt just saddled me with a charity case named Evelyn Reed. She called me Mr. Hayes in this timid little voice, her eyes wide like a startled deer. I figured she was a bird in a gilded cage, a pretty little thing sent to spy on me. But then, at the bid presentation, I saw my biggest rival respectfully call her Ms. Reed. And there she was, sitting in my seat at the head of the table, tracing a symbol on my proposal that sealed my fate. She looked up, her gaze locking with mine, cool, calculating, and amused. The floor dropped out from under me. Everyone says I was born lucky, the only male heir of my generation, destined to inherit the entire Hayes Corporation. Bullshit. I'm the only one who knows the truth. In this world run by powerful women, a man has to be 10 times more ruthless just to keep his footing. My aunt, my sister, all my female relatives, they're all watching me. Like they're just waiting for me to screw up and run the family legacy into the ground. Grayson, my aunt, Miranda Hayes, said, dropping a file on my desk. I've arranged for someone to join your team. I didn't even look up. Another Nepo baby. Miranda, this is a C-suite, not a daycare. Evelyn Reed, the Reed family's girl. My aunt settled into the chair opposite me, uninvited. Her family's hit hard times, and they reached out. She's a quiet girl. We thought having her near you as a personal assistant would be for the best. Give us all some peace of mind. I let out a short, harsh laugh. Personal assistant? You mean a babysitter? Don't be so cynical. You're not getting any younger. It's about time you had someone around to look out for you. I finally looked up and met her gaze. Just spit it out. Is this another one of your matchmaking schemes? My aunt just smiled, saying nothing. I knew that smile all too well. It was the condescending, unyielding smile of a matriarch who had already made a decision. The first time I saw Evelyn Reed, she was perched on the edge of the sofa in my office, head bowed, hands placed primly on her knees. She wore a simple, pale dress. She was thin, pale, with a delicate neck that looked like it could snap with one wrong move. I walked over, my shadow falling over her. She flinched and looked up, her eyes huge and dark, like a doe lost in the woods. Mr. Hayes, she stammered, her voice barely a whisper. The annoyance simmering in me boiled over. This was the woman they sent me? Evelyn Reed. Yes. Do you have any idea what kind of place this is? She nodded timidly. I do. Mr. Hayes, I'll work hard. I'm willing to learn anything. I walked behind my desk and lit a cigarette. I don't carry dead weight. Learn fast, or you're out. Got it. I understand, she whispered, her voice even smaller now. I waved a hand dismissively. Get out. Find Sarah on your way out. She'll get you set up. She stood, gave a slight, deferential nod, and slipped out of the room. The door clicked shut. I leaned back in my chair, blowing a smoke ring at the ceiling. A canary, and the most boring kind at that. Evelyn settled into her role, and she really was hard-working. First to arrive, last to leave. She made my coffee exactly how I liked it, the temperature always perfect. My files were organized with meticulous, almost obsessive precision. But she also seemed completely clueless. Once, I sent her down to the project management team to get a file. She came back half an hour later, empty-handed, standing in front of me with red-rimmed eyes. Mr. Hayes. Mr. Johnson said I couldn't have the file. Why not? He said I didn't have the clearance, that I wouldn't understand it and might mess it up. Looking at her, on the verge of tears, I felt a surge of anger. I wasn't sure if I was pissed at the project manager or at her for being so spineless. You're my assistant. You represent me. You just said no, and you walked away. I stood up, grabbing the intercom. I'm coming with you right now. She quickly waved her hands. No, that's okay, Mr. Hayes. I'll try again. She eventually got the file, though I imagine the process wasn't pleasant. That night, I came back to the office late to grab something and saw the light on at her desk. She was slumped over, asleep, the glow of her monitor illuminating her face. On the screen was a tutorial for project management software. I paused for a moment, then left without waking her. There was a strange feeling in my gut, like I was the one who had been the bully. I took her to a corporate gala. I was used to navigating these events alone. Bringing her was just for show, a performance for my aunt and the other vultures of my family. She trailed a half step behind me, silent. When someone tried to make small talk with her, she'd give a short reply and instinctively shrink closer to me, like a scared rabbit. Victoria Vance, one of my chief rivals, sauntered over, a glass of champagne in her hand. "Grayson, long time no see. And who is this?" Her eyes landed on Evelyn, sharp and appraising. "My assistant, Evelyn," I said flatly. Evelyn ducked her head. "Ms. Vance," she murmured. Victoria smiled, a flicker of something unreadable in her eyes. "Well, aren't you a lucky man, Grayson? Such a docile assistant." She chatted with me for a few minutes about the upcoming Hudson Yards redevelopment bid, fishing for information. I played along, not noticing when Evelyn quietly slipped away. After I finally got rid of Victoria, I found her in a quiet corner of the ballroom, nibbling on a piece of cake. I walked over. "Not a fan of these things." She nodded, then shook her head. "It's just a little loud. You get used to it." I noticed a smudge of frosting on the corner of her mouth and instinctively reached out to wipe it away. As my hand moved, she flinched back. My hand froze in midair. I lowered it awkwardly. "You got some frosting?" Her face flushed crimson as she fumbled for a napkin. Watching her, that strange feeling surfaced again. She was too innocent. So innocent it felt fake. Project Constellation, the company's flagship initiative, was entering its final phase. If we landed this, Hayes Corp's position in the tech sector would be untouchable for the next 3 years. Our main competitor was Victoria Vance's company. I'd been pulling all-nighters for a week, and my temper was on a razor's edge. The tension in my office was so thick, even my executive secretary, Sarah, tiptoed when she came in. Only Evelyn remained the same, quiet and unassuming, bringing me coffee and reminding me to eat. Late one night, I was staring at a dense market analysis report, my brain fried. A key data point just wouldn't align, and I'd been stuck on it for 2 hours. I slammed my fist on the desk, cursing under my breath. Evelyn chose that moment to walk in with a late-night snack, and she jumped at the noise. She placed a container of soup on my desk. "Mr. Hayes, you should eat something." I ignored her, my eyes glued to the screen. She didn't leave. She hesitated for a second, then pointed a delicate finger at a chart on my monitor. "Here. 3 months ago, the data from that overseas subsidiary. Could it be used as a hedge to offset this projection?" I froze. That subsidiary project was obscure, the data proprietary. How the hell did she know about it? I followed her logic, and suddenly, the mental block shattered. The numbers clicked into place. "You understand this." I looked up, my eyes sharp. She immediately dropped her gaze, wringing her hands. "No, not at all. I was just guessing. You're busy, Mr. Hayes. I'll leave you to it." She practically fled the room. I stared at the closed door, the seed of suspicion in my mind growing into a massive, tangled vine. I started watching Evelyn discreetly. She was still timid, still painstakingly careful in everything she did. But I noticed the coffee she made was always the perfect strength for my level of fatigue. The files she organized were always prioritized in the exact order I needed to tackle them. Once, I casually mentioned an obscure business philosophy book in passing. The next day, a copy was on my bookshelf, right eye level. It was too much. Too perfect for a rookie who supposedly knew nothing. I had my private investigator do a deep dive on her. The report came back with the same story I already knew. The daughter of a fallen family, frail since childhood, introverted, with a mediocre education and a completely blank resume. A ghost. But the cleaner the slate, the more certain I was that something was wrong. The night before the Project Constellation bid, I was doing a final review of the proposal. I had her stay with me. At 3 a.m., I was finally done. I leaned back in my chair, closing my eyes. She quietly draped a blanket over my shoulders. Without opening my eyes, I asked suddenly, "Evelyn, do you think we'll win this?" She was silent for a few seconds. Her voice was soft. "Ms. Vance seems very confident." "Oh, how would you know?" I heard Sarah and the others talking about it." I didn't press her. I smirked to myself. Sarah was the most tight-lipped person I knew. She never gossiped about work. I brought Evelyn with me to the bid presentation. Officially, it was to give her some experience. At the venue, Victoria Vance saw me and walked over, flanked by her sharp, Ivy League-educated VP. "Grayson." Feeling prepared, Victoria's smile was predatory. "We did our best," I said, my face a mask. As we exchanged pleasantries, my phone buzzed. It was my aunt, probably calling to check in. I gave Victoria a nod and stepped into the hallway to take the call. The call lasted a few minutes. After I hung up, I didn't go straight back. On a whim, I walked around to the other entrance of the conference room. The door was slightly ajar. I heard Victoria's voice, but her tone was completely different now. All the smug rivalry was gone. "Don't worry, it's all been taken care of." I frowned, peering through the crack in the door. I saw Victoria Vance standing in front of Evelyn, her body angled slightly forward in a posture that was almost deferential, and Evelyn, with her back to me, was sitting in my chair at the head of the table. I couldn't see her face, but her posture was relaxed, one hand resting casually on the armrest. Then, Victoria's VP handed over a document. Evelyn took it and flipped to the first page. I recognized the cover sheet instantly. It was our bid for Project Constellation. She tapped a finger lightly on a specific clause. Then she looked up. Her gaze wasn't directed at Victoria. It shot straight through the crack in the door and slammed into mine. There wasn't a trace of fear or timidity in her eyes. Only a cool, sharp intelligence and an amused look that said she knew I'd be standing right there at that exact moment. The blood rushed to my head. I shoved the door open. All three of them turned to look at me. A flash of panic crossed Victoria's face before she masked it. Only Evelyn remained seated, her expression unchanged, though the sharp, playful glint in her eyes vanished, replaced in an instant by the familiar, wide-eyed innocence I knew. The switch was so fast, I wondered if I'd imagined it. "Mr. Hayes?" Evelyn asked softly, a hint of confusion in her voice. I glared at Victoria, my voice cold enough to freeze water. "What the hell is this? Why do you have my proposal?" Victoria forced a laugh. "Grayson, it's a misunderstanding. The event staff just received this spare copy. The cover looked like yours, so I was just asking your assistant to confirm." A pathetic lie. I snatched the document from Evelyn's hand. I flipped to the page she had been pointing at. It was a supplementary clause about our long-term maintenance and support budget, a number my team had spent weeks calculating to give us a competitive edge. And right next to that number, in faint pencil, was a small, neat question mark. I looked up, my gaze locking on Evelyn. She met my eyes, her brow furrowed with the perfect amount of concern and confusion. "Grayson, what's wrong?" she even asked softly. Hearing her use my first name made my stomach turn. "We lost the bid. It wasn't even close. Victoria Vance's company came in just under our offer, their price difference almost exactly matching the cost savings from that one clause marked with a question mark." Back at the office, I kicked over a trash can, sending papers flying across the floor. Sarah stood at the door, too scared to come in. "Get out!" I roared. The door clicked shut. I slid down the wall, breathing heavily. All I could see was that look in Evelyn's eyes, cool, amused, like a predator toying with its prey, and Victoria's deferential posture. "Ms. Reed, to hell with Ms. Reed." I grabbed my car keys and stormed out. I had to know the truth. I drove straight to the apartment building where Evelyn lived. I knew she didn't live at the old Reed family estate, but in a small, discreet apartment she rented for the sake of independence. I leaned against my car, chain-smoking. Around 10 p.m., her modest sedan pulled into the parking lot. She got out, saw me, and paused for a second before walking over as if nothing was wrong. "Grayson, what are you doing here?" She was holding a grocery bag from a convenience store. I flicked my cigarette away, grabbed her by the wrist, and yanked her toward me. "Did you enjoy the show?" I snarled, my voice low and dangerous. She winced, trying to pull away. "You're hurting me." "What show?" "I don't know what you're talking about." "You don't." I sneered. "Why did Victoria Vance call you Ms. Reed? Why did she have our proposal? Did you draw that question mark?" She looked at me, the innocence in her eyes slowly dissolving. She didn't admit anything, but her expression became calm, detached. "Grayson Hayes," she said, using my full name. "Are you interrogating me? In what capacity? As my boss or as my fiancé?" She dared to bring that up. "To hell with being your fiancé." My grip tightened. "Who are you? What do you want from my family?" Suddenly she smiled. Not her usual timid smile, but one laced with scorn. "Whatever you think I am, that's what I am." She leaned in close, her breath ghosting over my ear, her voice a whisper that cut like a knife. "Did you really think you could control me, just by keeping me close? Grayson Hayes, you give yourself way too much credit." I stared at her, at that defiant, fearless expression, a knot of rage tightening in my chest. "What do you want?" I asked, the words ground out between my teeth. Evelyn gently pulled her hand free, rubbing her reddened wrist. At first, I just wanted to see what the sole male heir to the Hayes dynasty was really made of. Her tone was as casual as if she were discussing the weather. And I shot back. Was I a disappointment? A little, she said with a nod. More naive than I expected. Her words hit me like a slap in the face. So you played me? Watched me make a fool of myself for your entertainment. Weren't you watching me perform, too? She countered. Watching me play the helpless, clueless girl to satisfy your savior complex and your need for control, Mr. Hayes. I was speechless. She was right, at least partly. Project Constellation. You leaked the details to Victoria? That proposal had obvious vulnerabilities, she said, sidestepping the question. I just helped Ms. Vance see the key issues more clearly. Helped. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Evelyn, you live in a world funded by my family. You take my salary, and you help my competitor ruin me. Salary? She looked at me as if I'd told the funniest joke in the world. Grayson, do you really think I care about your salary? She took a step closer, tilting her head back to look up at me. The streetlight carved her profile out of the darkness, and her eyes glinted with a sharpness I'd never seen before. I'm tired of this game. Now it's your turn. She turned and walked into her building, leaving me alone in the night. My mind was a chaotic mess. Rage, the humiliation of being deceived, and something else. A flicker of excitement I wouldn't admit to myself, sparked by the look in her eyes. I got back in my car, but didn't start the engine. I lit another cigarette, my hand trembling slightly. So, it was all a setup from the beginning. The fallen family, the pity placement, all of it was a lie. She came to Hayes Corp to cause trouble. Victoria calling her Ms. Reed. A possibility clicked in my head. I pulled out my phone and dialed an international number. I need you to run a background check. The name is Evelyn Reed, not the Society Pages version. I want everything. Go as deep as you can. After hanging up, I looked at the light that had just turned on in her apartment window. I had only one thought. This game wasn't over. The atmosphere at the office was toxic. Losing Project Constellation meant I had a board of directors to answer to. But I didn't fire Evelyn. She continued to come to work every day, made my coffee, and organized my files, as if our confrontation had never happened. The only difference was that she dropped the timid act. Her gaze was steady, her movements confident. When we passed in the hallway, she would nod and say, "Mr. Hayes," her tone distant and professional. Sarah asked me quietly, "Mr. Hayes, is it just me, or does Ms. Reed seem different?" I just grunted in response. I was waiting for the P.I.S. report, and waiting to see what her next move would be. A week later, my Aunt Miranda summoned me to the family estate. In the study, her expression was grim. "Grayson, I heard about Project Constellation." I sat on the sofa across from her, saying nothing. "I know you're angry, but I've known Evelyn since she was a little girl. She wouldn't have the nerve to leak a proposal." I looked up at her. "Aunt Miranda, are you sure you know her at all?" She frowned. "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means we might have all been played." I told her what I'd seen outside the bidding room, leaving out the part about our confrontation at her apartment. When I finished, Miranda was silent for a long time. "Victoria Vance called her Ms. Reed?" She murmured, her face paling. "Aunt Miranda, what's the real story with the Reed family?" She took a deep breath. The situation with the Reeds was never as simple as it looked. When Evelyn's parents died, the circumstances were suspicious. She was raised overseas, kept out of the public eye. She looked at me, her expression complicated. "Grayson, if what you're saying is true, what are you going to do?" I gave a humorless smile. "She can play a role. So can I." On the drive back from the estate, my phone rang. It was my contact overseas. "Mr. Hayes, we have something." Evelyn Reed, also known as Jean Yi, is the primary silent partner behind Apex Capital. Apex Capital? My heart skipped a beat. It was a venture capital firm that had exploded onto the international scene a few years ago, famous for its ruthless tactics and uncanny foresight. Her personal assets are estimated to be around. He named a figure that made my head spin. My hands tightened on the steering wheel. Furthermore, she has deep financial ties to Victoria Vance's company, Vance Innovations. It would be more accurate to say Victoria acts as her proxy in the U.S. market. So, not some fallen socialite, a financial titan, a shark, masquerading as a guppy in my pond, stirring up trouble. I ended the call, staring at the river of traffic ahead. The fire in my gut burned hotter than ever. Apex Capital, Ms. Reed, fine. This should be fun. I began to methodically sideline Evelyn, freezing her out. She was no longer invited to key meetings, no longer given access to sensitive documents. She showed no reaction, continuing to arrive and leave on time, handling trivial tasks without complaint. Sometimes in the office, I could feel her eyes on my back, calm, analytical. She was waiting for my next move. One day, I intentionally left a flawed project proposal on my desk, then left the office for a supposed meeting. The project involved a disputed piece of real estate. Moving forward with the plan as written would walk us straight into a regulatory trap. I was betting she would leak the intel to Victoria. I sat in a conference room for half an hour, then headed back. When I opened my office door, Evelyn was standing at my desk, holding the proposal. She looked up when I entered, her expression neutral. "Mr. Hayes, there's a problem with this plan." I walked over, feigning ignorance. "What kind of problem?" She pointed to the trap I'd laid. "This clause here. The zoning regulations are set to change in 3 months. If you invest now, the losses will be catastrophic." I stared at her. And I suggest you shelve this project immediately." She put the document down, her gaze meeting mine without flinching. I laughed. "Ms. Reed, you're so thoughtful." "It's part of my job," she replied coolly. "Isn't your job to rush this flawed plan over to Victoria Vance, so she can watch me fail again?" I took a step closer, my voice dropping. Evelyn's brow furrowed slightly. "Is that the kind of person you think I am?" "What else am I supposed to think?" I shot back. Ms. Genie of Apex Capital. Her pupils contracted for a fraction of a second before her composure returned. "You investigated me. It wasn't a question. Should I have waited for you to destroy me?" I sneered. "I never wanted to destroy you," she said, her tone infuriatingly calm. "Grayson, I have no interest in the Hayes Corporation." "Then what are you interested in, me?" She didn't answer, just watched me with an expression I couldn't decipher. Project Constellation was just the beginning, wasn't it? I changed tactics. "What's your endgame? A hostile takeover?" "If I want to take over your company, there are far more efficient methods than becoming your personal assistant." She walked to the window, looking out over the city. "Then why did you come here?" She was silent for a moment, then turned back to face me. "I came here because of you." "Me?" "Grayson Hayes, the only male heir, fighting to modernize a traditional family empire under immense pressure." She spoke slowly, deliberately. "I was curious to see how far you could go." "So, you were just watching the show?" "Not entirely." She moved closer. "I wanted to see if you had what it takes to be my partner." "Partner?" The word stunned me into silence. Apex Capital has been looking for a strategic partner in the U.S. market. The Hayes Corporation was on my shortlist. Her tone was serious, not a hint of joke. "So this whole time you were vetting me?" "You could say that," she nodded. "And I'll be honest, your initial performance was disappointing. You were overconfident, arrogant, and easily manipulated by emotion." My jaw tightened. "However," she continued, "you've been much more level-headed lately, more ruthless. It seems failure is a good teacher." I didn't know whether to be furious or amused. "So I should thank you for this valuable lesson, Ms. Reed." "You're welcome." She actually had the audacity to accept my sarcastic thanks. I looked at her calm, beautiful face, a whirlwind of emotions churning inside me. This whole thing started with a lie, and now she was telling me it was all for a partnership? "Evelyn, what part of you is real?" "This part. Right now," she said, her eyes locked on mine. "Grayson Hayes, do you want to partner up?" "On what?" "On securing the West Side Innovation Hub project. I know Victoria has been eyeing it, but if we work together, our chances are much higher." "Why should I trust you?" "Because I know Victoria's entire strategy," she said with a faint smile. "And, as a sign of good faith, I can return the profits you lost on Project Constellation." The offer was tempting, not just because of the money, but because of what it represented: validation. A powerful player, someone I'd seen as my enemy, was extending an olive branch. But the sting of her deception was still fresh. I need to think about it, I said. Fair enough. She didn't seem surprised. You have 3 days. She picked up her purse and walked toward the door. By the way, she paused, her hand on the doorknob. I won't be coming into work tomorrow. What do you mean? The evaluation period is over. She looked back at me, a flicker of mischief in her eyes. Whether we partner or not, Mr. Hayes, I don't think it's appropriate for me to be your assistant anymore. Do you? She opened the door and was gone. I was left alone in the office with her proposal, a burning question left in her wake. For the next 2 days, I pulled every string I had to verify what Evelyn had told me. Apex Capital was, indeed, seeking a U.S. partner. The West Side Innovation Hub was a fierce competition, and Victoria Vance's company was the frontrunner with an aggressive, well-funded plan. If Evelyn really could give me Victoria's playbook. On the afternoon of the 3rd day, I called her. Have you made a decision? She answered immediately, her voice light. Let's meet. I gave her the name of a restaurant. Done. She was already there when I arrived, dressed in a simple blouse and slacks, her hair pulled back. She looked sharp, efficient, a world away from the girl in the pale dress. I slid a draft of a partnership agreement across the table. Take a look. She read through it carefully. The terms are fair, she said, setting it down. But I have one condition. Name it. Full transparency. All information is shared. No more secrets. Her eyes were locked on mine. That includes your little private investigations. I knew she was referring to the P.I. And my little trap. Goes both ways, I countered. Deal. She extended her hand. Then it's a pleasure doing business with you, Mr. Hayes. I looked at her hand, slender, but it felt like it held immense power. After a beat, I took it. The pleasure is all mine, Ms. Reed. This time, the name felt different. The partnership was smoother than I could have imagined. Evelyn delivered on her promise, providing Victoria's entire blueprint for the Innovation Hub. Detailed plans, budgets, everything. It was precise, ruthless, and exposed every weakness. We tailored our proposal accordingly and won the bid in a landslide. The day we signed the contracts, we had dinner to celebrate. How did you get Vance's plan? I finally asked, my curiosity getting the better of me. Evelyn cut into her steak with practiced elegance. Apex Capital is the 2nd largest shareholder in Vance Innovations. Reviewing a proposal isn't difficult. So you help me by screwing over your own investment? An investment is about the return, she said, looking up at me. I believe a partnership with you offers a higher long-term return. You have that much faith in me. Not in you. In us, she corrected. Grayson, you're good at maintaining the status quo, but you lack the vision for aggressive expansion. I bring the capital and the perspective you're missing. We complement each other. Her assessment was blunt and accurate. I couldn't argue. The dinner was surprisingly easy. We talked about the industry, future plans, even random, unimportant things. For the first time, I saw the person behind the masks. She was brilliant, witty, and insightful. Our project moved forward, and Evelyn and I were in constant contact. Sometimes it was heated debates in the boardroom. Other times it was casual conversations over a meal. I grew accustomed to her presence, to her sharp mind and directness. Every so often, I'd see a flash of the old Evelyn, the way she'd tilt her head when she was thinking, showing that pale, delicate neck. But then she'd look up, her eyes clear and focused, and tear apart my argument with flawless logic, and the illusion would vanish. I started to wonder which one was the real her. Or maybe they both were. Different facets for different situations. Which one, I wondered, was she showing me now? The project's launch party was a massive event. As the faces of the partnership, Evelyn and I were the center of attention. She moved through the crowd effortlessly, a radiant smile on her face, captivating everyone she spoke to. I watched her from a distance, a strange emotion stirring in my chest. Victoria Vance was there. She approached Evelyn and murmured something in her ear. The smile on Evelyn's face faded slightly, but she nodded. As Victoria walked away, she shot me a complex, unreadable look. I went over to Evelyn. What did she say to you? Evelyn swirled the wine in her glass. Nothing important, just a reminder of old times. Old times about my family, my parents. Her voice was steady, but I saw a shadow pass through her eyes. I suddenly remembered my aunt saying her parents' death was suspicious. Your parents. A car crash. She cut me off, her voice barely a whisper. It wasn't an accident. I was stunned. She drained her glass, her profile looking fragile under the ballroom lights. That's why I need power. Why I need enough capital to find out what really happened. It was the first time she had ever shown me a crack in her armor. It was only there for a second, but I saw it. After the party, I drove her home. She was quiet in the car, leaning against the window, watching the city lights blur past. We're here. I pulled up to her apartment building. She didn't move. Grayson, yeah, if I had approached you as myself from the very beginning, would you have agreed to a partnership? I thought about it honestly. No, I admitted. The man I was back then was too arrogant. I never would have accepted a partnership with an outsider, especially not one led by a woman who wanted to call the shots. She let out a soft laugh. I know. That's why I had to find another way to shatter that arrogance. She turned to look at me, her eyes shining in the dim light of the car. And now, do you still see my deception as unforgivable? I didn't know how to answer. The anger had faded, but a nod of something complicated remained. I need time, I said. She nodded, not pressing the issue, and unbuckled her seatbelt. Thank you for the ride, Mr. Hayes. Her use of my formal title felt like a step back, a deliberate return to distance. She got out of the car and walked into the building without a second glance. I watched her go, my thoughts in turmoil. After the project launched, our official collaboration paused. She returned to the main office of Apex Capital, and we saw each other less. But the strategic alliance between Hayes Corp and Apex was in full swing, so we still had video conferences. On screen, she was always the consummate professional. Calm, collected, perfect. I found myself zoning out during meetings, staring at her image, remembering the vulnerability I saw at the party, remembering the questions she asked me in the car. My Aunt Miranda noticed my distraction. Still thinking about that girl? I didn't deny it. She's been through a lot, Miranda sighed. Her parents' death. The whole situation is messy. For her to build Apex Capital on her own overseas. The things she must have sacrificed. Why did she come back? Wasn't the international market big enough for her? Everyone wants to come home eventually. And besides, I suspect the people responsible for her parents' deaths are connected to powerful players here. Miranda lowered her voice. Grayson, if you have feelings for her, help her. That girl carries a heavy burden. I was silent. The knot in my chest was starting to loosen. A month later, Evelyn called me. Her voice sounded exhausted. Grayson, can we meet? There's something I need your help with. We met at a quiet coffee shop we used to frequent. She looked pale, with dark circles under her eyes. What's wrong? I asked. She pushed a manila envelope across the table. This is everything I found so far about my parents' car crash. I opened it. Inside were old investigation reports and a few grainy photos. The evidence pointed to a meticulously planned accident, and the trail of whispers led back to a massive conglomerate, Stratton Corp. Stratton Corp, a longtime rival of the Hayes Corporation. You think Stratton was behind it? I don't think. I know. Her knuckles were white as she gripped her coffee cup. I found a key witness from back then, but he won't testify unless... Unless what? Unless a corporation with enough power can guarantee his and his family's safety. She looked up, her eyes meeting mine. In them, I saw a desperate plea and the steely resolve of someone betting everything on a final gambit. Grayson, can Hayes Corp do that? I looked into her eyes and saw her pain, her thirst for revenge, but also trust. She was laying her biggest secret, her greatest vulnerability, bare before me. I finally understood what she meant that night about needing power. I understood what my aunt meant about her burden. And in that moment, the last of the knot in my chest dissolved completely. Yes, I heard myself say, Hayes Corp is with you. We began to move in secret, using the combined resources of Hayes and Apex to protect the witness and gather evidence. It was a battle. Stratton Corp's influence ran deep, and they fought back at every turn with threats and intimidation. One night, Evelyn was nearly run off the road. While I got the call and rushed to the hospital, I found her with only minor injuries, but her face was ashen. I burst into the room and saw her sitting there alive. The fear that had been strangling me finally released its grip. Are you okay? My voice was hoarse. She shook her head, managing a weak smile. I'm fine. They're getting desperate. I crossed the room, and for the first time, I pulled her into a hug, holding her tight. Her body was stiff for a second, then she melted against me, resting her head on my shoulder. She felt so light, and I could feel a faint tremor run through her. "Don't be scared," I whispered. "I'm here." She didn't say anything, just wrapped her arms around my waist, holding on. In that moment, nothing else needed to be said. We finally had enough. We were ready to launch our final assault on Stratton Corp, using a two-pronged attack, a market assault and a legal one. It was all-out war. Evelyn and I practically lived at the office, working around the clock, planning our strategy. We'd catch a few hours of sleep on the office sofas. In the dead of night, we would stand together at the floor-to-ceiling windows, watching the sleeping city. "When this is all over, what do you want to do?" I asked her. She thought for a moment. "Move the Apex headquarters here, permanently. And then, maybe take a vacation." She turned to me. "What about you?" "Me?" I looked out at the skyline. "I'll probably keep running Hayes Corp. With my partner." She smiled but didn't speak. The air between us was charged. One morning, after another all-nighter, I was driving her to the apartment she was staying in. At her door, she suddenly stopped. "Grayson." "Yeah, thank you," she said softly. "And not just for this." I looked at her. In the faint morning light, her face was clear and soft. "You don't have to thank me," I said. "I'm here because I want to be." I leaned down and kissed her. She didn't pull away. Our joint attack was devastating. We launched a coordinated short-selling campaign against Stratton Corp on the stock market, while simultaneously submitting our evidence to federal regulators. The result was a bloodbath. Stratton's stock price plummeted, the company was thrown into chaos, and its top executives were taken into custody. After a month of brutal corporate warfare, Stratton Corp collapsed. At the press conference, Evelyn and I stood side by side as the architects of its downfall. A reporter asked us to clarify our relationship. Evelyn glanced at me and smiled. "We're partners." I added, "and fiancés." The room erupted. Evelyn looked at me, stunned. I took her hand. I figured it was my turn to make a move. I whispered. She stared at me for a second. Then a brilliant smile broke across her face. She squeezed my hand tightly. After the press conference, we walked out of the building into the bright sunlight. "Fiancés?" she asked, raising an eyebrow. Did I say yes? "So will you?" I asked, turning to face her. She just laughed, pulling me forward by the hand. "Let's go, partner." "Where are we going?" "To celebrate. And then, to discuss the merger of our empires." A warm breeze blew past, carrying the first hints of summer. Everything was exactly as it should be.